invite you to turn in your Sidurim, in Sidur Sim Shalom. We continue on page 14, and in Lev Shalem, we're going to continue on page 10. Some of you may know that the Chazan is in Brazil visiting his family, so we have a guest for tonight, my wife, Jody. He may accompany you. Okay, so we'll begin with Yedid Nefesh, as I said, page 14 in Sim Shalom, page 10 in Lev Shalem.
Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman Mishavdach El Ritzonach Yarut Avdach Kemohaya Yishtachaber El Muhadarach Yerav lo yedidutach minofetuf v'chol ta'am Adonai ziv ha'olam nafshi cholat avatach Analna refanala beharot la noam zivach az titchazek betitrape behaitalach shivchat olam Atikemu Rachamecha Bechuzna Al Beno Havach Ki Zakama Nichsof Lirot B'Tiferet Uzach Ana Eli Mahmad Libi Chushana Ve'al Titalam Higalena Ufros Chaviv Alai Etukat Shelomach Ta'ir Eretz Mikvodach Nagila V'nismechach Maher Ahuv Kiva Moed Bechoneni Ki me'olam Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai dai Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai dai Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai 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 Yadai dai dai Lechune ramina ladonai nari aletur yishenu nekad mafanav betoda Ismirot nari alo nekad mafanav betoda Ismirot nari alo Ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim asher be'ado mechkerei haaretz v'toafot harim lo asher be'ado mechkerei haaretz v'toafot harim lo
Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands formed the earth's deep. Mountain crests, too, are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai who formed us. We conclude the psalm at the bottom of the page.
40 שנה כות ודור ואמרם תוהה לבבהם והם לא ידעו דרכי אשר נשבעתי ואפי אם יבואון אל מנוחתי שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בצרו מיום יום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו. כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים, ידי כי כל אלוהי העמים אלילים, ואדוני שמיים עשה. הוד והדר לפניו, עוז ותפארת במקדשו. הבו לאדוני משפחות עמים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז. הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו. שאו מנחה ובואו לחצרותיו, ידי ישתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, חילו מפניו כל הארץ. אמרו בגויים אדוני מלך, אף תיכון תבל פעל תימות. ידין עמים במישרים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ. ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו, ידי אז ירננו כל עצי יער לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים באמונתו. ידי
Adonai reigns, let the earth be glad. The many distant lands rejoice. Clouds and thick darkness surround the divine. Righteousness and justice secure God's throne. Fire goes before God, consuming besiegers round about. Flashes of lightning illumine the land. The earth watches and trembles. Mountains melt like wax at the approach of Adonai, at the approach of the master of all the earth. The heavens tell of God's righteousness, and all the nations see God's glory. Those who love Adonai shun evil. God protects the lives of the faithful, saving them from the hands of the sinful. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright. Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous people, and thank God as you pronounce the divine holy name. We continue at the bottom of page 16 in Sidur Lev Shalem, 17 in Sim Shalom, or Zarua.
Or Zarua Latzadik, Ule Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Zarua Latzadik, ולישראל לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו.
We continue in private prayer, Psalm 98. We continue in the middle of the psalm, beginning Zamru Adonai Bechinor.
Zamru Adonai Bechinor, Bechinor Kol Zimra, B'chatzotrot v'kol shofar. Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayam umlo, Tevel v'yoshveva. Neharot yimcha uchav yachad, harim yeranenu. Lifnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot tevel b'tzedek, ve'amim b'meisharim. Yiram hayam umlo, Tevel v'yoshveva. Neharot yimcha uchav yachad, harim yeranenu.
Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the Kruvim makes the world quake. Adonai is great in Zion above all nations. They shall acknowledge your name, saying, Great, awe-inspiring Holy One. A sovereign strength lies in the love of justice, and you forge the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly. Exalt Adonai our God, bow down before God, the Holy One. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel amongst those who called upon the divine name. They called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai our God, responding to their petitions. We continue at the bottom of the page, page 20 in Lev Shalem, 19 in Sim Shalom, Psalm 99.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai. Romemu ki kadosh Adonai. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu.
We rise as able and continue with Psalm 29, page 20 in Sidur Sim Shalom, 21 in Lev Shalem. Myron will accompany us.
Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai Benelim, Havul Adonai Kavod Ba'oz, Havul Adonai Kavod Shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai Behadrat Kodesh, Kol Adonai al Hamayim, El HaKavod Hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai b'kawach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai atar zehavanon, Vayarkitem kemo egel, Levanon v'Syria, Kimoven re'emim, Kol Adonai chotei b'kodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot, Vayachesov ye'arot, Uvechalot lo merkavot, Kulo, kulo, kulo merkavod. Adonai lamabul yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
You may be seated as we continue with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. L'shem ul tiferet v'liti la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, Kumitzeimi tocha hafecha, Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, Vehu yachmol alayichem la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hivna ari me'afar kumi, livshi bigdei tifartechami, al yad ben yishai beit halachmi, korva el nafshi ge'ala la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, shir daberi. Kevod Adonai alayich nigla la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi ve'lo tikalmi, ma tishtochachi u'ma tehemi, Pach yachasu aniyei ami. V'nivneta ir al tila la 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 lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. V'hayulim shisa shosayich. V'rachaku kol mevalayich. Yasis alayich Elohayich. Kim sos chatan al kala la 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 lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Yaminu smol tifrotzi. V'et Adonai ta'aritzi. Al yad ish ben partzi. V'nismecha v'nagi la 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 lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Ohi v'shalom ateret bala. Gam besimcha uvetohola. Toch emunei am segula. Boricha la 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 lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi. Likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela.
You may be seated. We continue page 23 in Siddur Sim Shalom, page 27 in Lev Shalem, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat.
Mizmor shir liyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, uzamer l'shimcha elyon, uzamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunah Alei Tasor V'alei Navel Alei Gayon Bechinor Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai Uzamer l'shimcha elyon Uzamer l'shimcha elyon, ki simachtani befolecha, v'maaseh yadecha aranen, ma gadlu maasecha Adonai, me'od Amku machshevotecha. Mizmor shir liyom HaShabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, uzamer l'shimcha elyon, uzamer l'shimcha elyon.
A psalm, the song of the day of Shabbat. It is good to thank you, Adonai, and to sing to your name most high, to proclaim your love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. Finger the lute, pluck the harp, let the sound of the lyre rise up. You gladden me with your deeds, Adonai, and I shall sing of your handiwork. How wonderful are your works, Adonai, how subtle your designs. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in our God's courtyards. We continue to conclude the psalm, Tzaddik Katamar.
Tzaddik Katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yiske, שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינובו בסבע דשנים ורעננים יהיו להי כי אשר אדוני צורי ולחבותם. מקולות מים, מים רבים אדירים, משברי ים, אדיר במרום אדוני, עדותיך נאמנו מאוד. לביתך נב הקודש, אדוני לאורך ימים.
Chaverim, we are going to pause as we normally do at this point in our davening to reflect for a moment or two on this week's Torah portion, or a little piece thereof. And Jody's trying to recruit a couple more people who are residents in our household to come down and help us at least be able to say one Kaddish at the end. Okay. So in our Parsha this week, our Israelite ancestors are energetic, excited, enthusiastic because the process of dedicating the Mishkan is reaching its culmination. In this week's parasha, we read of the completion of the last task to make the Mishkan, the tabernacle, fully viable and functional, and that is the investiture of the Kohanim, those who will officiate in the Mishkan. And one can only imagine the excitement that permeated the Israelite camp as this powerful symbol of their connection with God was coming online, as it were. Though it's intriguing that our teacher, the Chozeh Lublin, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Halevi Horowitz, who lived in Poland from 1745 to 1815 and was not a student of the Baal Shem Tov directly, but he was a student of the five people who were the primary continuers of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. And part of what he introduces us to is what he sees is a bifurcation or a conflict, actually, between what God is hoping for and what the Israelites are hoping for. And I think he gives us a very insightful teaching here. Specifically, the Israelites, as I noted, are excited by the physical place that they have created in order to become the place where God's presence is to be found. And in fact, God tells, Moshe tells them that if you do these things, if you engage in these activities, then in fact, God will appear to you. And that is exactly what happens as the Parsha unfolds. The Israelites go through a variety of rituals, and the aura, the appearance of God, of God's presence, manifests itself to the community. And it is here that the Chozeh Lublin says this is where there's a bit of a tension, at least in his mind. And as I said, I think he makes a good point. The Israelites see the Mishkan, the tabernacle, as the place of God's dwelling. It's almost as if this is where God resides, right? God, however, if you remember back to the beginning of the building of the tabernacle of the Mishkan, says, "V'shachanti b'tocham," that I want to dwell not in some fancy place in the middle of the camp. I want to literally take up residence in each and every Israelite. That God's hope is not that we will sequester him in the sanctuary, but rather that we will internalize God and therefore take God out of the sanctuary and with us into the real world and manifest our appreciation of God's presence by doing God's commands, by doing acts of chesed, by doing those things which make our world a better place and therefore truly make God's presence manifest not just to us in a single moment and in a single place, but potentially at all times and in all places. So whether we are engaged in our business, whether we're engaged with people in schools, in stores, in shopping centers, wherever we are that we encounter people, the seer of Lublin, the Jose of Lublin says, we have an opportunity to make God's presence manifest if we have brought him with us in our hearts and in our souls. So with that, Elena, if I could, if you're still with us, if I could ask you to bring your screen live perfect. And in addition to Jody, my two children are here, which affords us,
you have three.
Well, two of my three children are here. And that enables us to conclude our study as we normally do with the recitation of Kaddish D'Rabbanan. So it is page 27 in Sidur Sim Shalom, page 38 in Leiv Shalem. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrat chutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chai echon, v'yom echon, v'chai l'chol Beit Israel, v'agalau v'zman kari v'imru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabach La'olam La'olam Haya. Yiparach, Yishtabach, Yipa'ar, Yitromam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shmei Kucha, Richu, La'ela, Mikol, Yechata, V'shirata, Shushbechata, V'nechmata, V'amiran, V'yamua, V'yuamin.
Amen.
Al Yisrael, V'al Rabbanan, V'al Tamidehon, V'al Kol Tamidehon, V'al Kol Manda Skin Yoraita, Di V'atra Hadain, V'di V'kol Atar V'atar, Yehei Lohon Alachon Shmama Rabba, Shina V'chista V'rachamin, V'chayin Arichim, V'shana Revicha, V'forkana Min Kadam Avahon V'Shmaya V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmama Min Shmaya, V'chayin Tovim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'imrochav, U'v'rachamav Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
Amen.
Chaverim, will conclude with Shalom Aleichem. And just remind you that with Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut coming up in the middle of this week, there are myriad of activities and events, all of which you can find on the Shabbat sheet or on our webpage. Way too many for me to list right now. So again, Lena, welcome and welcome to the community. We'll conclude with Shalom Aleichem. Oh, and before we do, I just want to say Yishar Koach and thank you to Jody for leading us in davening this evening.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lochem l'shalom, malachei shalom, malachei elyonim, melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lochem l'shalom, malachei shalom, malachei elyonim, melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lochem l'shalom, malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu L'Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyonim Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom and Barak. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbat Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Have a
Good
great
Shabbos.
Shabbat, everybody.
Yeshikoach, Jody.
Thank you.
And tomorrow morning, we're live streamed starting at 10 a.m.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy
Shabbat
your
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.